Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Rioch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Welcome to Talk to Brazil, the business connection, the world's first English language internet radio and now podcast program about business in Brazil and the world. I'm Tom Rioch, an American living in Brazil for many years and known for business networking, and I'm now talking from my podcast studio in Campinas, São Paulo, Brazil. Today's guest is Julio Bravo, and he's talking with us from Curitiba in the state of Paraná, Brazil. I met Julio through Alex Fosel, who was also a previous guest here on Talk to Brazil. Julio is CEO of Agro Bravo in Brazil, a company which offers technical educational experiences in the agribusiness sector. He is also co-founder of Contrarian Agriculture Series. So with that, hello, Julian. Welcome to Talk to Brazil Business Connection.
Hello, Tom. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time and the invitation.
No, Julie, it's important because, as you and I know, Brazil has a very vibrant and ever-growing innovative agricultural sector. It's always in the news worldwide. Brazil is the breadbasket of the world. But the agricultural sector sometimes is not known from people outside of it. Obviously, farmers throughout the world, companies involved in the agriculture have an understanding. But help share with our audience, what is this Contrarian Agricultural Series, and what are your objectives?
Yeah, Contrarian Agriculture Series, it was a thing that we created with the Agriculture Entrepreneurship Initiative with the Iowa State folks, Kevin Kimley and Dave Krog. We've been doing several trips since 2016, taking sons of farmers and second and third generations to Iowa for a week program where we would touch base with the companies that had a very successful succession planning back in the days. So that's how we started. It was a live event. It was an event that it took place twice a year in the United States for a week in Iowa State. And after the pandemic came, we were planning, of course, on the next trip, and then the pandemic came, and then we thought, why not doing it online?
Right. So
with that, we could socialize more with the broader audience, right?
Right.
Because every time you take a group out, it's like 25, 35 people. And now on the first Contrarian Agriculture thing, we had over 1,000.
Wow.
Guesses on our website. Yeah, we have 1,300 to be exactly. But it was a neat thing. And Contrarian Agriculture stands for people that did something different in agriculture, outside of challenging the status quo of agriculture somehow. You plant, you harvest and you sell. You plant, you harvest and you sell. And what else? What is around agriculture? Right? What is outside the fence type of thing that you can be ready for it? What are the lines of credits out of Brazil that you can get in a better rates or a bigger check or connecting with people like on the first one, we connected with Bruce Rastetter, which is a very successful entrepreneur on the investment side. He brought Wall Street to Iowa, let's say, United States. So and then he brought that in a way that it was very unique. And then after several years, he decided, an interior guy from Iowa came to the interior part of Mato Grosso and do two big, large corn ethanol plants, right? And bringing investors from Iowa with him. So, that's kind of a unique thing. I mean, like, Lucas Verde, Sorriso, those places, right?
Right.
Before Summit Group arrived, that it was pretty much planting and harvesting and selling, right? And now there is an industry out there. There is a big industry building up on the interior parts of the country. So that's kind of like we like to talk with the guests that we bring on, how do we challenge those goals, or how do we create a new business out of the farming business, right? Or parallel business, like Harry Stein, the saying, Harry was a very unique guy. Back in the 70s, he created the germplasm to the genetics, and now he owns 60% of all the royalties comes back to him in Iowa, right? In the United States for soybeans. So that's kind of like we thought in here, bringing people that did something different on their careers, on their business, and inspire the Brazilians to, trying to allocate themselves to do the same.
Well, I think the excellent point that I get from that, and I've seen that in other areas, specifically in Brazil, not only the agricultural sector, but many family-run businesses have and still have a challenge of succession. As you get down through the various generations, obviously the founders, be that on a farm or be that in an industrial complex, tended to dedicate, 150% of their time to their business, and were very successful. But many times we saw that the succession plan wasn't in place. The children or the offspring were off doing different things, and the world was changing. So I think that involvement and talking about agriculture, I think the two countries in the world that really do walk side by side are Brazil and the United States. And when you talk about soybeans, corn, other products, they're leaders. And on one side, what you said of, planting, harvesting, and selling and buying, that's a process that will be forever. But as Brazil evolved, from my point of view, I think it still is maybe the only country that can have 3 harvests within a year. So there were some unique innovations in Brazil, even to the world. People outside were surprised at what was happening here, really on the ground. And I think that sharing, and now what you're doing is to offer that internationally to other people, will be a great experience.
Yes, and then let's take some examples. Frederico Logman from SLC. It's a big farming operating company, right? It's one of the biggest in the country, maybe in the world. His grandfather brought John Deere to Brazil, and then John Deere bought their business. And if they didn't have a very successful on seeing succession, right, they wouldn't have one of the largest farming operating groups in the world, right? Federico came and talked to us, and he said that SLC, it's a 75-year-old startup, which is
good, right? Because every year's a new year, every day's a new day.
Because there are revolutions in our business sometimes, right? They were a farming equipment factory, and then they sold that to John Deere, and they started to be farmers, right? One of the largest in Brazil, over 400,000 hectares, and then the next time they did the first IPO in the sector, right? And then they're on the finance part as well. So each time they passed through revolutions, they were okay on looking different ways to their business, right? Let's say John Deere back in the days. When John Deere founded John Deere, he didn't know that John Deere will be like 200 years still here. But the succession planning between them, the family business was in the family for 5 generations at least. I'm not sure if it is that number. But now it's there are 10 or 11 CEOs that were actually running John Deere for 200 years almost, right? So that's the unique part and succession and stuff that I'd like to get people a sense of that, right?
Now, well, I mentioned I'm here in Campinas. This is where I'm headquartered. Campinas also has a very large presence here from John Deere. They have a technology and a logistic establishment here, and then much of their development for technology happens here in Brazil. Because Brazil, I think in many aspects, I'm not a farmer, but it does have unique aspects when you're talking about farming. When you're talking about all kinds of businesses. So to have research and development here, in country, in-house, on ground, is essential. These things here are certainly different from other places. Some things are similar. If you go to in the middle of Iowa, out to the Dakotas, you look out in the field and say, wow, everything's sort of flat and sort of easy, and there's places in Brazil like that. But Brazil is as big as the United States is, but I think Brazil has more arable land than the U.S. has.
Right. And then there's also, GDP related. Brazil relies on 22% of the GDP of Brazil comes from agriculture space, right?
Right.
But if we put, Tony, if we put John Deere, New Holland, ACO, Massey, Syngentas, Monsanto, Bayers, or whatever, this GDP goes over 35 because those guys represent the industry. Those guys doesn't represent agriculture.
Right.
But they are generating jobs. They are generating capital. They're generating a lot of stuff. So if we say that at the end of the day, Brazil relies on 35, maybe 40% of their GDP. It's related to agriculture. It's our call.
Right.
Brazilian call is to be a farmer, is to be a producer, So we can industrialize. We can make people thinking outside the box and make different things like Bruce brought a legacy that he will leave behind in Lucas and Sorriso. He's not going to stay there forever, but someone will buy that, and that corn ethanol plant will stay forever.
Well,
right?
Somebody's always buying something every day. Yeah, you wake up in the morning and somebody's gone and somebody's coming. So, and startups.
But it's the legacy that you leave. Yeah.
Yeah, but startups are starting up every day, and I think that's essential.
Right.
We have the traditional companies, but we also have in here, specifically in the area of Campinas, we have a very large number of startups that have literally started up around technology for agriculture. They're all, let's say, small companies, but very intense, and they've all found their niches. Years ago, everybody thought a drone was a toy. And today you have automation in farming. You have drones flying over fields, analyzing a square meter of space. You have things happening that nobody even thought could happen.
It's a necessity now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we have. I have with a couple of friends. We have AG5. It's a fund investment group that me and plus some friends with the John Deere dealer owners from different regions of the country. We created this group to invest in startups related to the agribusiness. So we look to startups every day.
And there are new ones every day. So, and the new opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, to the Contrarian Agricultural Series that's coming up. Tell us about that. How can people be part of it? Yeah. What is this going to be?
Yeah, the idea here is actually to build up a community of people related to agriculture. So, we don't see many of things coming out other than Newton. And we don't see many of websites talking about Brazil. Brazil, for a long time period, and this is me saying that I saw lots of trips to investment banking, to investment funds, lots of trips to international people that came to visit Brazil. Everyone kind of say that Brazil is a black box. Because there is not a lot of information coming out of Brazil in English, or in Japanese.
I know that.
Yeah, you know that. That's why you're doing that, right?
That's what I do. I agree with you because I've been obviously in Brazil a long time. I've been working with companies outside and developing products and markets here and outside. But what I had heard every day was exactly that. And one of the reasons I started Talk to Brazil in 2009 was that I just started researching on Google at that time, business development. And I went in business development Mexico, business development China, business development South Africa, business development Mexico, business development Brazil, every one of these countries. Every time you'd go into a Google search for any of the other countries, you would get information about them in English, first page. Right? It was China, Mexico, South Africa, whatever. When you would get into Brazil, what would come up is what I would call the 5 S's. And what were those 5 S's? Sun, sin, sex, samba, and soccer. What you would see in a Google search for business in Brazil were pictures of samba schools, football players on the stadium, beaches, whatever. All of that's business. I'm not going to say it isn't. Sandálias Havaianas, that's all business. But for somebody out there looking for traditional type businesses or startups, there's nothing there in English. And very few things even in Portuguese. And so it really was, and Brazil still is to a certain point, off the radar. So a business person doing his searching is even more intense today with internet. He's searching. There are offers from every other country in the world. There are very few from Brazil, comparatively speaking. So what you're doing, trying to highlight that's important. But got to get people to know that exists.
Right. Yeah, and that's like Paulo Herman, the president of John Deere. He's a very close friend of mine. He helps me with the Contrarian. He helps us giving tips and go this way, go that way. So Paulo Herman, he is in a club of people that is very that has lots of information, right? Right. Of course, 80% of the information that he eats around him, he cannot share under NDAs and everything else, right? But 20% of the little information that that are on his hands are on his hands. But he will share that with his company, with his employees, with his managers, directors, and everybody, right? But people cannot get that. So I want to be involved with Paulo Herman's Friends Club, Harry Stein, Bruce Restatter, people that made some differences. Aline Bortoli from Bom Futuro, well, they farm almost 600,000 hectares. It's 4 times the size of São Paulo in land. That's a lot of land, right? So they have 200,000 hectares of 200. There are 110 different farms. So Aline Bortoli from Bom Futuro, can you imagine how many people just go visit them every day? Things like that.
That's it. I think the second point that you've found that I think is going to highlight your success, and I see that as being the plus side of the COVID experience, making everybody become digital and making everything become virtual. And what you just said, you had thousands of people. Nothing could block you from having 10,000 people taking part in Contrarian. So I think the technology's there, the world's out there, the interest's there. And I think the way you're structuring it, obviously, is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and in building up this community, I want to build up a community of United States, the Americas, let's say, United States, Central America, Chileans, Bolivians, everyone that is out there doing farming operation with Brazilian, and then Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina. For instance, there is a guy, I call it in a professor, Professor Pardal, I don't know how to translate that, but Federico Trucco. He come up with this thing that their farmers are waiting for 20 years at least. He took a gene from sunflower and he put in the soybean and wheat, and now he has eco wheat for drought tolerance agriculture. I mean, can you imagine how big of an impact can be a company like that having access to farmers and talking about his product and get people understand and help to develop a better genetics for the future of agriculture? And let's say in the future we can be self-sustainable in wheat and not imported from anywhere else, and then bring in wheat product for Midwest, for the Northeast, and maybe in the future to Africa, so things like that, I want people to get involved with, and this is my day-by-day thing. I talk to those guys every day. Before the pandemic, just to give you a sense, the biggest year of mine was I took over 600 people out of Brazil with my company, organizing travel or tours, technical tours, right? And I have a small branch of my business in Florida as well. That is Agro Bravo LLC, and I brought around 300 international folks to Brazil on that year. So I move around 900 people. After the pandemic, I could touch 1,300 people. Right. So and of course, out of that, I spent over 26 different weeks out of Brazil. Maybe 30 weeks out of Brazil, taking those tours, being connecting and doing all that. So, and now I'm sitting here in my office in Curitiba, about 200 meters from my home. I can have lunch with my daughter every day. You talk to me in Campinas, and we're talking to the world right now. And that's technology. Yeah, that's very unique. When I did my high school years in the United States, I was 15, 16 years old. I went to Quad City areas at Davenport Central High School. And I remember one thing about the young kids. The young kids, they were so well prepared. After they come back from summer, they have to go in front of class and tell everyone about their summer experience. Right. We don't do that in Brazil. We don't teach people how to communicate, how to be marketing, how to how to, that's why United States is United States and Brazil is Brazil. Well, Christopher Columbus arrived in Americas in 1492. Pedro Álvares Cabral arrived here 1500. What's the difference? The 80 years different, right? So what happened in between that?
Well, that we can discuss that for 14 days straight without sleeping. But what we have to do now is really take forward what we have on the table. The world has changed. And I think obviously what you have done and what you have seen, that's both sides, right? In the States too, farmers have a better understanding what Brazil's all about. You mentioned John Deere coming, but many other companies have come here and they've learned. They've seen it. Oh, yeah. And seeing is believing. One of the things that you know and I know when you travel and you get out there, you see things and you believe it. Many people are still that. They need to see it to believe. The virtual situation's changing. What you're offering now, and this will be my question, who will be the next speakers in this 2.0 and when will it happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. We will have some really interesting folks now. We kind of open up to a broader audience. We're going to bring John Lagman. He's the VP of Sales and Marketing for North America and South America. He's actually the boss of Paulo Herman here in Brazil. We're going to bring Michael Horsch, which is the owner and founder of a very successful company in Germany. They do planting and sprayer company. It's a very big company out in Germany, and they're investing a couple of million euros here in Curitiba on their new factory. Okay. I'm going to bring Rafael Mioto, which is the vice president of New Holland, Latin America. All right. Very successful young entrepreneur and executive. He's very young and very business-driven way of seeing things. Of course, he operates in a huge company that it's CNH, right? Benjamin Richin, which is a farming operator, and he's a farmer from Iowa and close to Waterloo in Jesup, Iowa. He was a banker and he got back to the farming business. José Eugênio Sobrinho, which is the owner of Agroterenas. He's one of the largest orange producers in the world. He's also a very large sugarcane farmer, and he owns part of Cosan, which his family owns part of Cosan. They were actually the founders. Guys from Concha Toro, Concha Toro, the wine company in Chile. So they're going to bring, the challenge of that business to us. What they did Contrarian to be so successful with the grapes that they created, Carmenetic, for instance, which is a big grape from Chile, and they are selling everywhere in the world. Climate Bonds Initiative, which they do green finance to companies that are looking to, finance things with a green background. Rafael Abud, which is the CEO of FS Bioenergia, the first corn ethanol plant in Brazil, from Summit Group. Melissa Carmichael, she's the Vice President in Strategy of Innovation at Bremer Bank, one of the 10th top largest agriculture bank in the United States. She's from Minnesota. And the end of it, we're going to leave it with Lairo Maggi, which is everyone in Brazil or in the world already heard his name. He's a very successful man. He left his company, leaving and created a very big governance. He now has presidents, he has CFOs, people really high-end type of guys working on his company. And his company's revenue over 17 billion reais, which is roughly $3 to $4 billion a year, right?
Now these are all going to be live sessions.
Yeah, we're going to have live sessions in different days. We will have live sessions from November 17 and 24, December 1st, 8, 15, and 17. But with the platform we created, people can see out streaming later on. We kind of inspire ourselves on Netflix, and we created a platform where people can see it later with simultaneous translations. Or, for example, if you speak in English, Brazilians will be hearing in Portuguese. If you speak Portuguese, Americans or anybody else in the world will be listening in English. And also Spanish, because we got folks from Argentina and Uruguay as well that are coming up on board. So that's
so in any sense, then, even though there are live sessions, people throughout the world and wherever their time zone is, will be able to access the streaming and then hear it, at least simultaneous translation on whatever those sessions were, right?
Right, yeah, and then we really want to. How can we inspire and to keep developing our contrarian agriculture mindset? Kevin Kimley, he's the head of the Agriculture Initiative, Entrepreneurship Initiative Department in Iowa State. Kevin Kimley came up with this contrarian thing with the idea of not be upon the agriculture, but actually do something outside the box and opportunities. Right. Entrepreneurship, innovation, competitivity, business view, succession, things like that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the secret. So now we're going to have that. It's going to be, again, the dates, the 17th and 24th of November, the 1st, 8th, 15th, and 17th of December. I'm seeing on the site you sent me, there will be evening from 8 to 10 p.m., right?
Yeah, Brazil, Central Time.
Central Time in the States, and there will be simultaneous translation. And also I see here persons who take part will be offered a certificate from the Hawkeye Community College for participation. So it's an educational event.
Yeah, it's an educational event because if you see here, my team, as Alex Fosso being a partner, he really brought lots of unique things with his background to our program. And Bradley Kissinger, which was the guy that thought that online version of that could be fun. He was actually the creator of everything. He is the brains behind everything.
Okay. Well, you got a lot of brains now. You got brains all over the place.
Yeah, right. I am the communicator. I am the connector. I like to be this way. The brains are Alex Foster, Bradley, Kevin, Dave, and all those guys from Iowa State. Basically, that's how we created, and we got this certificate from Hawkeye Community College. And community college throughout the states, it's a very unique thing. They do help a lot. And I wanna mention my co-founders, the people were my padrinos, which is Iguaçu Máquinas, a John Deere dealer out of Mato Grosso, and Summit Agriculture Group from Iowa. So those are the guys that believe on the thing without knowing what was that, and they help us to develop the thing. So
that comes from trust. Once you develop trust level, then people don't need to see to believe. And I think that's the way it goes. Well, anyway, Julie, we're coming to the end of our time. I want to thank you for your time and congratulate you on your experience, and look forward to also participating and seeing what this is all about. But for our listeners, for them to get in and see what this is and how to register and sign up, get more information, I'm going to mention the link that you sent me. So it's agbeexperience.signup.com.br for Brazil. So agbeexperience.signup.com.br, correct?
Correct. Well, I want to take the time as well, Tom, and thank you. It's a very unique thing. I never did that, so thanks for my first time.
And we'll be talking more, I'm sure, as we get closer. So thanks for sharing your time. And for our listeners, you can also find more about Julio Bravo. That's JULIO BRAVO on LinkedIn. And as I mentioned, Contrarian Agricultural Series 2.0. That's agbeexperience.signup.com.br. I'd like to thank our audience and our sponsor, Focus MI Market Intelligence. Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their website, which is www.focusmi.com. Visit our website, talktobrazil.com, to find our previous shows of Talk to Brazil, which are also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and many more. Remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Tom Rioch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.